Lacey.
And I'm Sam.
Welcome to Monster Soup and Creature Brews, the podcast where we talk about all things monster movies, big, small, creepy, or downright ridiculous.
From movie monsters to cryptids lurking in the shadows of folklore, we're here to explore them all. So kick back, grab a snack,
or a drink,
and let's dive into some monster-filled mayhem.
Hello all, welcome back to Monster Soup and Creature Brews. On tonight's episode, we are going to be discussing the movie Jurassic Games, and Sam is here with the official description.
10 death row inmates enter a deadly VR show to battle dinosaurs for a second chance at life. But when the system malfunctions, the carnage turns real with a new host and higher stakes. Survival is no longer just a game.
Alright, and Explain It Badly says, death row inmates compete in a dinosaur-filled virtual reality game show because obviously the best way to deal with murderers is to throw them into a CGI Hunger Games with T-Rexes and pretend it makes legal sense.
Yeah, by the way, that summary, I don't think that summary is accurate, because that's not exactly what happens.
It's 10 death row inmates, yeah.
Well, the whole thing where a new host and higher stakes, that doesn't really happen. With a new host and higher stakes, survival is no longer just a game. There's no new host.
I don't know. That's what IMDb.
Oh, no. I agree with you. I'm just saying, like, looking at it from someone who's watched the movie, does that sound like that's what happens in the movie?
No, the host doesn't sound new. And there's a whole scene where I think they're supposed to be talk show hosts, talk about how hot they think the host is.
Yeah. I don't know who made that description, but they're an idiot.
It's possible I messed the description up.
No, that's what it said. I pulled it up to see exactly.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's not you. I just meant, like, that description doesn't match what we've seen at the movie. So I was like, whoever wrote that may not have watched the movie.
To be fair, and as a warning to anybody who might listen to this and then go watch this movie, this is not a high-budget movie. So I don't think there was much follow-through or concern about the movie description when they wrote it. It's not the worst movie I've ever seen, but it's not the best.
I think it was a good watch, but it's definitely not a good movie. I would never pay money to see it in theaters.
No, this is definitely a, like...
I'm willing to pay $3 on Amazon to watch it once.
For anybody who remembers Blockbuster, I'm going to date myself here a little bit. For those of you who remember going to Blockbuster and picking out a movie with your family, this was definitely an end cap Blockbuster special that you could rent for, like, buy one, get one if you bought Reese's Pieces candy.
Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. I was born ready, Sam.
The film opens with a quote on the opening scene. Let's use capital punishment the same way we use sports and television in the country to distract people. George Carlin. It then shows a news report explaining that the main character, Anthony Tucker, was found guilty of first-degree murder. We see short clips of virtual reality type screens, random people, news stories, and people being strapped into virtual reality headsets. And then the host straps into a saber-toothed tiger's skeleton mask. He explains that the contestants can feel pain in this world, and that when they die in the game, they die for real. The sole survivor is given a full pardon and allowed to return home. There are no rules against killing the other contestants yourself. They have to complete challenges and reach safe zones. They are wearing what look like anti-bark shock collars for dogs that will blink and change color to tell them how close they are. The host says, "Congratulations, you're the contestants in the greatest show in the world," and a T-Rex bursts through the trees and they all scatter. An old man is eaten pretty much right away. Doesn't even try to run, really. And then it flicks back to the control room where we get to see some of the dynamics behind the scenes. No surprise, the game is heavily manipulated. The host seems like he might be a bit of a psycho himself. He talks to the contestants' bodies for no reason and sometimes touches their bodies while they're in their little containment area.
I take issue with... I'm assuming they did it because it was cheap and this film was clearly on a budget of some sort. But normally when you see this kind of premise and people are being plugged into a virtual reality world, they're in like a pod. Like I'm thinking Avatar. They're like in a pod of some sort.
Or at least wearing a helmet. Not goggles. Like your eyes are closed. What are we doing here?
Yeah. So these 10 death row inmates, they are just like leaned up against a wall, dressed in white, wearing virtual reality goggles.
Think of the crazy patients that used to be in straitjackets and like a dolly situation. It's kind of like that, except think Starship 3000, where they're just strapped into this thing to the side.
I was about to say, it actually reminds me a little bit of the ride at the fair, where you just get sucked up
it looks just
thing.
like that,
and
except there's like they're all in a row and they have like VR goggles on.
Honestly, I don't take issue with the effects of this movie are actually really good considering the budget.
Yeah.
What I do take issue with is that there's no setup or explanation or backstory. You're just thrown right into it. So in some respects, it does feel a little jarring because the first thing you see in this movie is they're just instantly in virtual reality land.
You don't even really understand that it's like they briefly explain the premise, but like there's no real context, which I don't necessarily hate because then it sets you up for future movies to have like a prequel. So like if they ever wanted to like, how did these death games start? Who were the first contestants?
Actually, that's a good point. This feels very much like a prequel. Like we should have watched a whole series before we watched this one. Because even the characters' names, in a lot of instances, you don't even find out what the character's name until close to their death scene.
Yeah. Well, also, it would have been kind of cool to have more like it definitely feels like you should have watched the crime, murder, mystery before the actual Jurassic Games to understand how they got there.
I do wish they had given us a little bit more information on what some of the characters' crimes are.
Yeah, there's a couple that die and we never find out like what they did.
But yeah, there's one character and I was like, I feel bad just writing Asian dude, and it wasn't until like literally right before he died he was like, Psh, Ren, and I was like, oh, his name is Ren.
There's sometimes, depending on the movie, if they don't say their name until like the very end of the movie, I'll just insert what their name is. I'll like go look up the actor and then just insert their name because I'm not going to be calling them this dude and that dude until the very end. It's fine to like keep it a mystery until they get introduced in the show, but if they get introduced like 45 minutes into the movie, I'm not waiting that long.
Like Asian guy fought raptors.
Asian guy won.
Yeah.
We do see brief clips of people watching the shows at watch parties and other events. We see a cannibal attack a black guy and bite the shit out of him. At that point, no name is given for either of these characters. He's just screaming, "This is real, I can taste you." The game has 4 stages. Stage 1, Dino Nom Noms. The contest.
That's not what it's really called. I know. Dino Num Nums.
The contestants have to reach the safe zone before being eaten by hungry dinosaurs. Stage 2, the maze. A labyrinth full of velociraptors who also, no shit, try to eat the contestants. Stage 3, the minefield. Characters must navigate landmines while dodging dinosaurs. Stage 4, fun surprise.
This whole movie felt very much Threat Level Midnight, written and directed by Michael Scott, starring Agent Michael Scarn. Is that the vibe you got too?
A little bit. With a little bit more money, but yes.
Better graphics, but it's definitely in the Threat Level Midnight vibe.
This really felt like some like theater school student who came into a lot of money and had a vision. And the premise is really good.
The premise is good. The premise is solid. I think they just needed slightly better dialogue and maybe to have some people in the development who weren't like...
Well, this is clearly a case of this would have been a better like short series, like 6-7 episodes. Like what was that show we used to watch, like Earth 53 or something, where they sent a bunch of teenagers down to the planet to like terraform or whatever. I can't remember what it's called.
I don't know. You and I watched so much TV.
The premise of that show was really, really good, but after like the first season, the purpose of them being there kind of got diluted, so it fell off. But this felt like it would have been a great 6 episode, where each episode you kind of learn more about each inmate and
their backstory.
Yeah.
You know what this would have been a really good, would have been like a YouTube series. Do you remember when we would watch The Guild?
Oh yeah, I love The Guild.
Like if it had been done in that style, I think it would have been really good.
I don't know. If Netflix had picked this up and they made it like a 6-episode short series.
Well, we're assuming, college student with money.
Yeah, I think it could have been good.
By the way, we did no research on how this film came to be. We're just talking.
Yeah. Stage 1, they do a video game style character introduction. We finally found out some names and crimes of the contestants. Most of the characters that are introduced, aside from Tucker, are convicted of multiple murders. They are drug cartel leaders, assassins, serial killers, etc.
Which I found unusual because hypothetically the point of this is one person gets set free, right? And we do see like clips throughout the whole thing where you can see that they're definitely
controlling things behind the scenes.
Yes. Heavily. Like, if you've got one guy who's like, even if he did kill his wife, hypothetically, the whole movie basically implies that he's innocent, But let's say he did. He killed one wife, but every other contestant has killed 30 plus people.
Oh, they have bodies.
Perhaps he's the one that they're going to swing to win because they're going to get released into society, and apparently society's just like, okay, it's cool if the cannibal's here.
It was worth it for the ratings.
Yeah.
They show that the producers are worried about protest and cyber attacks. We see William, the black guy, who was bitten by the cannibal, attack Joy, a teenage contestant. Our main character, Tucker, intervenes. To be honest, William is kicking his ass. So Tucker throws sand in his face. Dale Gribble style pocket sand.
You know what it also reminded me of, though?
What?
Is this scene from Pirate of the Caribbean where Johnny Depp and Orlando Bloom are having their, like, sword fight. And Johnny Depp throws sand at him, and Will is like, dude. And he's like, pirate.
No, he said, that's not fair.
Yeah, you cheated.
Yeah.
Pirate. Duh.
Yeah, he hits him in the head with a rock and knocks him out. Joy takes the rock and finishes the job and kills him. I don't really get Joy's character. We don't really get much of her backstory. They just say that she's a psycho killer and make her act all crazy. We see a news reporter interviewing Tucker's children who believe their dad is innocent. The news reporter clearly doesn't approve of the games and dislikes her job. We see Joy and Tucker walking, and Joy attacks him and uses a rope to perform the world's slowest hanging. Where did she get the rope? Did she have pocket rope? She doesn't kill him, just leaves him there choking.
Well, it's just like there's a rope out of nowhere all of a sudden, and still to this point, other than the initial T-Rex, which I feel like should have killed more contestants than it did, we've seen no dinosaurs.
Oh yeah, I didn't realize they go through a huge stretch of just them attacking each other.
Do, and as a grown man, I just find it hard to believe that Joy's character is clearly 19-ish and slender. That he would overpower. And just be like, the world's like, she gets a rope, drags it over a rock, pulls on it. He's, what would you estimate him to be, 250?
Oh, he has to be like 250, 265?
Around 6 foot, and what would she be, 115?
Yeah.
5'4", maybe?
Yeah.
It was one of those moments where I was like, this would have been better if they had introduced the Velociraptor sooner.
It would have been really hard for her to keep the leverage because she's not as heavy as him.
No.
So how did she lift him up? Because his weight alone would have either pulled her up or yanked the rope out of her hand.
Well, if he had been passed out, I could have seen it. I'd have been like, okay.
Yeah, she could have slowly yanked him up.
Right, but he wasn't passed out, so there was nothing stopping him from just turning around and, like, yanking the rope back.
Well, just him struggling would have yanked the rope out of her hand. I don't know if you've tried it. Like, it's not like there's a pulley up there to give you some leverage.
No, I can say I've never tried to slow hang someone. This is a dumb thing to focus on, but I'm going to. Because, I mean, none of this is realistic.
I'm with you on that. I was just watching. I was just like, there's no way that actually happened. Right, she doesn't kill him, just leaves him there choking. Another contestant walks by and frees him, saying they need to work together to survive. Once again, no introduction, so no name, just Asian guy freeing Tucker. They show the news reporter watching Asian... You want to say something?
They don't ever technically introduce the news reporter, too. We find out her name through conversation later. It's so frustrating. This whole movie, I was like, and what's this character's name?
They show the news reporter watching Asian guy confessing to crimes on tape. He's covered in chains. It looks very much like he was set up and not actually guilty. Because at the end, he starts yelling to fight back and not accept your fate. But there isn't any context.
No, he just says, don't be sheep, be lions. And it's just... I mean, like, you can sort of infer that this is maybe, like, a political setup.
Yeah.
But they don't say, like, so-and-so is convicted of terrorist attacks. It's just, like, that one clip, and Laura's all like, he shouldn't be participating in the games. This is wrong.
Yeah.
And the director, whose name we also don't find out till later, is like, well, bitch, there's 1,000 pretty faces who will do this job if you're not happy.
Yeah. It's very stereotypical. I'm the boss, you do what I say. You know, my way or the highway.
Mm-hmm.
It was that exact line was used in Jurassic Park, or not Jurassic Park, Godzilla. There's a ton of other people who can do this job. Why would I make you do it?
Mm-hmm.
We see a character called the Wasp running through a canyon with giant banana spiders above him. He hurts himself on a rock, really thought he was going to be eaten by a spider. But instead, the Mason brothers run up and start harassing him, which seems like a waste of time.
Well, they're demanding if he knows where the safe zone is, and it's clearly if he's in the same canyon as you, how would he magically have that information? You guys all started at the same point.
It's just one of those, like, you know what I know. We got here at the same time.
It's the equivalent of watching a movie with my mother where she's like, who's that character? And you're like, Mom, I've spent the exact same 5 minutes you have. They haven't introduced them yet.
Yeah.
I don't know their plot
She
point.
does that like crazy.
Oh, I know. Do you know how this movie ends? No. Because this is the first time I'm watching it.
We just rented it all together. You watched us click the button. The wasp promises to help save the brother's mom from cancer if they help him. Raptors finally show up right before they're about to eat the wasp, and the Mason brothers, the host makes them like dissolve digitally. They have like these sliders that can like phase them in and out. So they just run through the contestants.
Ta-da! You're in the safe zone.
You're right.
This is where I'm assuming they're heavily manipulating where they appear in this virtual reality, because they all seem to be in different sections of the game, more or less, but they walk through the screen like wall, and then they're all in the same spot again.
They might be using the dinosaurs to like herd them into the specific area, and then
except for there's no dinosaurs
that we see. We don't know what's happening off screen.
To be honest, I was really disappointed that the banana spider didn't eat the wasp
or do anything. Actually,
they show it and it looks ominous, and then it's a letdown.
There's a couple scenes where you see them like crawling, but then you don't actually see any kind of interactions.
No.
Eventually, all the contestants make it to the safe zone, and then stage 2 starts. 8 characters make it to the maze. We see a really cringy Nick at Night style commercial selling the game contestants action figures. Then the host goes on a weird rant to the characters' bodies. I can't tell if this is part of being filmed or if he's just doing it to listen to himself talk. All of the characters get knocked out, and then they wake up in chains connected to a wall. They must complete a highlight style challenge where they complete a digital maze on the wall to release themselves to get a gun. Albert, the cannibal, finishes first and gets the gun. Tucker gets free second and steals the gun. Everyone solves the digital maze and gets free of the chains except the Asian guy, who Tucker shoots free. And they all start running from velociraptors.
I don't know if you've seen this episode of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, but there is a season where Jake and Rosa get framed for bank robberies and they're sent to prison. And in the early scenes of that season, Jake's roommate, he's separated from like Jen Pop in prison. He and his roommate kind of have like a camaraderie because they have to work together. And throughout the scenes, you find out that his roommate's a cannibal. And Jake is like, you're a cannibal? And then slowly you come to find out that he was, but he only cannibalized children because they're too weak to fight back.
Oh, yeah. I remember you telling me about that.
It's really fucked up. It's very funny because it is Brooklyn Nine-Nine, but it's very fucked up. And Albert the Cannibal has those vibes because anytime Tucker or another member actually fights back, he like cowers on the ground and gives up the gun. Like, didn't even try to hold on to it.
He pretty much only, with the exception of the like big black guy that he attacks in the very beginning, he pretty much only goes after the women. And
even then, he attacked that dude from behind. And if that guy had turned around and really swung on him, he would have apologized.
He didn't even really. He like bit the guy and then like started yelling into the sky. Like he wasn't like eating people. He was just biting them aggressively.
Honestly, his character's really inconsistent, but it reminded me of Jake's roommate, Jake's cellmate from Brooklyn Nine-Nine, where he's like, well, you know, the kids, they're just so much easier to lure.
Sadly, the only character to die in the maze is the Asian guy, who I think might be named Ren, but not after a cool scene where he uses the chain attached to his wrist to fight the raptors, nunchuck style. The maze is nothing but dead ends, and they must use the gun to shoot through a vent to escape. Stage 3, Stephanie gets rewarded with a digital map. The host tells her she can share it or keep it to herself, which makes no sense, because they're all together. Then they can just follow whoever has the stupid map, which is exactly what they do.
Well, I mean, they fight over the map for a little bit, and then they all just one by one follow the person who ends up... The Mason brothers end up stealing it. They just follow him, so what was
the point? It didn't matter who got it.
Now, and they clearly are able to spawn them in different areas of this virtual world. So I don't understand why you wouldn't give her the map as the reward. Then go, Stephanie, do you choose, you can even Tyra Banks it and make it really dramatic. Do you choose to share this map?
Yeah.
Or do you choose to keep it all for yourself so you may fight one more week to be America's Next Top Model? Like, you could have done it that way and then spawn them in different locations.
If this is a digital world, why wouldn't they make it where only she can see the map?
Right. And so if she goes, I choose to only share it with, well, I'm going to assume not Albert, but let's say she chooses to only share it with Joy as the only other female playing. Like, why wouldn't they then spawn them away from the others? I would do this better if I was in charge of this virtual death
This
map.
whole part didn't make a lot of sense.
I would be better at this.
We find out Stephanie murdered men via live streaming. There's a kind of funny moment where Stephanie asks Tucker Why do you think they made dinosaurs as the thing we're running from? Tucker says because they tested better than robots, which is probably on brand for this. The next scene is the wasp being eaten by some sort of plant. One of the Mason brothers tries to save him, but his face seems to be melting off from the plant's saliva goo. The wasp tells him that he was never going to help him save his mother anyways, and the brother stomps his face in, killing him.
None of their storyline makes any sense at all.
I mean, I kind of see what they were trying to do, but if I'm being honest, nobody would really believe or do any of it.
Well, this has a Hunger Games premise. There is only one winner. So what are you going to do? Get the wasp all the way to the end and then let him murder you both?
Yeah. I don't know.
In exchange, on the off chance that this drug cartel leader will then turn around and help your mother after you're both dead.
Yeah, I'm with the crazy brother. There would have been no purpose for saving him.
No.
Because nobody.
I mean,
we wouldn't be able to both get out. Both of us can't get out anyways, so we're eventually going to have to choose. And why would we give up our lives so he can pretend save our mother?
I mean, I guess the purpose would be that maybe you have velociraptor fodder to distract them later on if you needed to. Like, you're in the maze and you could, like, shove him in front of you.
I just have to outrun you, not everybody, not everything
and he
else.
does have an injured leg, so I guess that could be the purpose. But otherwise, their entire storyline arc was...
The wasp tells him that he was never going to save his mom anyways, and the brother stomps his face in, killing him. Then the one dark-haired brother says he doesn't want to play anymore. The contestants reach an area with a box of supplies, and it's filled with landmines. The dark-haired brother refuses to participate, and they blow his head off in the game. Then the other brother is picked up by a pterodactyl and dropped on a mine, and he blows up. We see a clip of the host being worried that a group called the Cavemen are going to disrupt the end of the game in protest. The final four contestants are Tucker, Albert the Cannibal, Joy the Psycho, and Stephanie the OnlyFans serial killer. Albert asks Stephanie for her knife, then stabs Tucker to take his gun. They all end up running in the forest / rocks. Albert and Tucker fight before the gun gets tossed into the canyon. Albert goes down to get it and is eaten by what I think are giant scarab beetles.
It's not super clear.
They look like scarabs, like really big scarabs. Stephanie was bitten in the neck by Albert and eventually eaten by a saber-toothed tiger after Joy kicks her into a canyon. So Joy and Tucker move on to stage 4. On stage 4, we see Laura, the news anchor, being confronted by the director, Savannah. Turns out she's part of the caveman group, and she kills the director by shooting her in the head, after telling her she's going to kill the host on live TV tonight. Back with the contestants, it's the two of them chained up in the sand, and they have to find the key to free themselves and cross a green line in the sand. Joy goes on a weird rant about how she actually killed Tucker's wife, and I don't even know if we're supposed to believe she actually killed his wife or if she's just a psycho trying to upset him.
Well, and it's one of those things where the IT guy who's helped spawning the dinosaurs asks the host, I don't know, do they ever say his name?
The host?
Yeah, I never caught his name.
Like Ryan Seacrest.
He looks like Ryan Seacrest. Where they ask Ryan Seacrest, oh, did you know? And he responds, no, but we hoped. So I don't know if it was suspected that maybe Joy, because they never actually talk about what her crimes are either.
No.
That maybe she had ties to Tucker's family and was involved in the wife's death. It's not sure if this is just meant to be like a psycho rant to distract him.
Right.
It's very confusing.
The host heavily implied that they kind of knew that was the case.
Right.
But they never explicitly say it. So we don't really know. But she claims that she killed his wife and that his wife begged to see him or something before she died. Something like that. I don't know.
I think that's the theme of this movie is it's almost there, but not quite.
Yeah. If there had been like a scene at the beginning of the movie where his wife gets up or goes to the store or something and then disappears or comes back all bloody and then he gets caught and the police get called, it would have made a lot more sense. And then we see them in prison, but we don't get any of that.
Or maybe if we found out that Joy and his daughter were friends and she used to come over after school and the mom was mean to her or something, like any kind of little backseat clip would have been helpful.
Yeah, usually for a movie like this, they would have had a scene at the very beginning where the wife goes down to get something out of the refrigerator and then gets killed by a shadowy figure. And you can kind of tell that maybe it's a female. And then they leave and then the husband calls the police, gets arrested. And then they go through the whole hullabaloo.
The husband is distraught, picks up her body and gets covered in her blood.
And then there have been like subtle hints throughout the movie that one of the people who killed his wife is in the games. and then it came to like a big conclusion. And I'm a fucking moron. If I can come up with that kind of premise, I'm surprised they didn't think of that. Like, this is some like movie 101.
Or even more backstory on Joy. They never say what her crimes are. They just say they show like they show a clip of Laura, the news anchor, trying to interview her, and her just acting insane.
Anyways, the host decides to release 3 T-Rexes instead of 1 dinosaur to make things more interesting. And the dinosaurs start to fight amongst themselves because they are territorial. They're programmed to be like actual dinosaurs, not just what they tell them to do.
No, so it's Joy and Tucker arguing and fighting while trying to find keys in the sand, while 3 big T-Rexes are also kind of fighting around them. By all rights, they should have been both squished.
Right? And fighting is a strong word. It's more like Joy's just kicking his ass because he's all injured from the previous round because he got stabbed. So he's like bleeding out, and this girl's like ranting about how she killed his wife and is kicking his ass while at the same time.
In fact, Tucker finds his key the best way possible. He gets whipped by a T-Rex and lands on top of it, and it stabs him in the back of his arm.
Right. Joy finds her key before Tucker, but eventually gets her chain trapped under the downed T-Rex. Tucker finds his key after he gets thrown by a T-Rex, and it gets stuck in his arm. They end up racing for the green line, and Tucker crosses the line to freedom first by jumping and landing just over by his head. While this is all happening, the cavemen are taking over the production studio. They pull out Tucker from the game and wake him up. Then they force the host into the game.
Which this is the most... They basically just put the VR goggles on him and like maybe shoot him in the neck. There's not like a massive hookup that I assume you would need for a true Neuralink.
No, they like trank him and then put the goggles on his head.
And this is something I mentioned when Sam and I were watching it. Seems extra stupid because if you're knocked out, your eyes are closed. How are the goggles doing jack shit?
Thank you. That's why I said helmets would have made... Like, helmets with, like, little cords coming out of them would have made way more sense.
Or even, like, you could have just gotten some, like, tanning beds like they did in Avatar. And
just like, cases?
Yeah, and, like, capsules, just, like, you're fully enclosed. I would believe that there's, like, some sort of neuro touch point with that. But just... The goggles must have just been easy and cheap.
I feel like helmets would have been pretty easy too, but they're just...
Helmets would have been better. Yeah. I would have believed helmets more.
Yeah, you could have easily like repurposed like motorcycle helmets. Just like made some like wires that come out of them. Like Mewtwo Strikes Back, where he has like a little helmet and he's like in the tube. There's a ton of ways they could have done it.
I don't believe that goggles with your eyes closed because you've been tranked are going to put you into what is, and it's not even that it's a visual experience. They say that they can feel pain. That means they have to have some sort of deeper neural link happening.
They pull out Tucker from the game and wake him up. Then they force the host into the game. Brian, the IT guy, tries to deprogram the T-Rexes, and Laura shoots him in the head. The host is then eaten by the Rex on live TV. The studio is filled with SWAT members, and there's a shootout. Laura and most of the staff seem to be killed. Tucker is shot too in the shootout, but the movie ends with a scene of what looks like a talk show discussing how exciting they are for the games to be back, and then we see Tucker eating with his 2 kids and with a sling, so we can assume he survived and is now free. Then it shows dinosaurs roaring, and they get covered in weapons and lasers. The end.
Yeah. It looks beyond ridiculous because it's like a T-Rex with some sort of like missile launcher strapped to his back.
They pretty much look like Digimon, where they're like dinosaurs with like machinery attached to them.
And all I'm gonna say is that there are so many better, different ways you could go if you were trying to make your executions more interesting. For instance, you could allow the public to vote and say, will our contestants be trying to survive The Walking Dead scenario? Are contestants going to be trying to survive giant spiders? Are contestants going to be trying to survive those things from The Quiet Place? Oh, that would be terrifying.
We talked about it when we were watching the movie. Like, there's a lot of things. Like, you don't have to just do dinosaurs. You could have easily spiced it up and did different scenarios every time.
Honestly,
would have made a much better show.
Even if you had different scenarios for each round kind of had dinosaurs, but not really. Like, you could have one round where all the contestants are fighting a kraken, and they're all on a pirate ship.
I would super be down to do like a Left 4 Dead where you have like, they put 3 groups of 4 and they have an assortment of weapons surrounded, and you get from point A to point B. There's guns littered along the way, and you have to survive the zombie horde that's coming after you. I would watch that.
Right? And
I would participate in that if I could, as long as it's virtual reality.
I was about to say, as long as you don't actually die.
Well, the whole point is it's VR.
Yeah. But The whole point of this movie, I don't believe the premise either that society as a whole. I do believe that society as a whole would come to the point where they were okay executing people like this because people are savage.
Well, I mean, it's just lethal injection.
But I don't think that they would be okay with releasing one of them back into the general population because, I mean, even Stephanie, which we don't really get any of her backstory, but she hypothetically murdered dozens of men via live streaming OnlyFans. So, I mean, are we really going to be okay with Stephanie just walking out, go murder 16 more men?
Well, like, all it takes is one person to do it again.
And it seems like you'd have a pretty significant lawsuit on your hands.
Yeah, like, you thought this was okay? Like, who approved this?
I'm thinking too much on it.
I stand by it was a good watch. I just would never watch it again, even though we've watched it twice now.
Even though we have.
Yeah, but it was for a good cause.
I think this is one of those movies that if it's on TV, it's a good watch, but I wouldn't go out of my way to like see it at a theater.
I gotta tell you, if I watch bits and pieces on TV, so like say it was on TV and I like caught like 30 minutes of it,
I'd get sucked in.
I would want to watch the rest, but once I watched the whole movie, I'd be like, oh God, why did I do this?
Or you know how sometimes if you're waiting in an ER or a doctor's office or something along those lines and you don't have control over the TV and it's on, I would definitely keep watching it to completion.
Yeah.
Any hoozle, that's this week's episode. If you have spare time and are bored, check out the Jurassic Games and tell us what you think. And if you like, stick around for our Monsterverse moment. On today's Monsterverse moment, we're going to be talking about Wendigos, which is inspired by our lovely cannibal friend Albert from the Jurassic Games. His character is interesting. So cannibals usually come in two flavors, Dahmer and Donner, which you have Jeffrey Dahmer, who was a serial killer who liked to torture and eat people. And then you have the Donner Party, which got stranded in the middle of nowhere in a blizzard and were starving to death, and it was kind of like, well, Jedediah died, so maybe we should turn him into stew?
God, they couldn't pick two different names? Like, why
no, they're very similar.
Yeah, like, first, I thought you were saying the same thing, like Dahmer, and I was like...
No, Dahmer and Donner.
Yeah, and Blitzen, and Cupid and Donner and Blitzen.
So normally you do see cannibals in kind of those two themes, which Albert didn't really seem to fit either one of them. We don't get very much backstory on him.
Can you imagine, like, you were forced into a weird situation and now people named a cannibalism sect after you? That would suck.
Oh, it would suck. But anyway, so just because I was sort of thinking about how weird his character was, I decided to go this route with our Monsterverse moment. I'm not going to talk about actual cannibals. There have been a million IDTV episodes done about Jeffrey Dahmer. And the Donner Party is a very tragic moment in history that has also had its equal share of coverage. Also not really in line with our theme here.
No, not really.
But if you're curious, they're out there. You can read about them. We're going to talk about Wendigos today, which is a creature rooted in indigenous North American folklore, particularly along the Native American peoples who reside in Canada and along the Great Lakes area of the United States. And it's important to acknowledge that the Wendigo is a big part of their culture and traditions and folklore, so it's a little bit more than just your usual fun cryptid tale. This is a little bit deeper than the Fresno Nightcrawlers.
Yeah.
And I do think that we should just kind of say that at the beginning, that it actually does have like significant cultural meaning. So a Wendigo is often associated with winter, famine, and greed, and then there is obviously the cannibal factor built in that. According to legend, a person could become a Wendigo after resorting to cannibalism during a time of extreme hunger, but in some versions, it's not just survival cannibalism that leads to the transformation. Sometimes it's the overwhelming sense of selfishness or insatiable greed as enough to invite the spirit of the Wendigo in. And that's because in some versions of this folklore, it's an actual physical transformation. You ate Jedediah because you were hungry, and then you turned into the monster. Or you were very selfish and maybe you hoarded all the food in winter, and so you got possessed by a Wendigo spirit, and then you became a cannibal.
Huh.
There's kind of two different sides to this because it's several different tribes that have this folklore, so there's several different versions of it. Once transformed either way, a person loses their humanity and becomes basically this monstrous being. The main hallmarker of it is that they're never satisfied. They're always hungry. They're always looking for human flesh. Descriptions vary pretty heavily too, which is normal with this kind of a thing. But they're usually said to be very tall, sometimes 12 to 15 feet, with glowing eyes, yellow dog-like teeth, unnaturally long tongues, sharp claws, and they're usually depicted or described as being really emaciated and skinny looking. Really disturbing.
Picture like a winter Slender Man.
A little bit. In modern pop culture, a lot of the times they're depicted as having like antlers, but that's not, the antlers are not true to the lore. That's a liberty or a creative license that's been done by video games and movies.
Well, I was about to say, there's actually a monster in World of Warcraft that's called a Wendigo.
Yeah.
Shout out to Dunn Moreau.
Another notable thing about Wendigos is that most of the legends say that they smell really bad and that they smell like death and decay and that you can actually smell them before you see them.
It's probably more the breath because they've been eating
I would
flesh.
think so.
And blood.
Or you know what? If they're just never washing and just constantly eating
they're
stuff.
just like any animal that's been out in the wild. They don't. It's not like they bathe.
Some descriptions say that the more a Wendigo eats, the larger it grows. And with that growth, its hunger increases, and that's part of the reason it's never satisfied. It's cursed with like a bottomless appetite. It's never going to be full, but it's always going to be hungry. They're also reported to be incredibly fast, really smart, and able to track. So just let that haunt your nightmares.
I was like, I could see all that.
And the Wendigo is really meant to be a cautionary figure. It's a symbol of warning against, the consequences of selfishness and the loss of community in times of hardship. And it's really, it's meant to be, if you think back to when these lores would have originated, starving to death in the winter was a very big reality if you lived near the Great Lakes or in Canada.
They don't have the same amenities and safety measures that we have now. Like, there isn't like snowplow. There weren't snowplows back then just plowing the streets.
No, and if we have listeners who... like we have listeners, but if we do, who don't live in the United States or are not from the United States, in that particular area, the winters are really long, they're really harsh, blizzards are bad. It's not unusual to get feet and feet and feet of snow and be unable to even leave your house. Many, many parts of the United States, even now, but definitely hundreds of years ago, are very spread out, very rural, very hard to get to. If you do not have modern infrastructure in place, you would be very reliant on your community. So it would be a very big deal if someone within your community was hoarding limited food supplies during a very harsh winter. So I think that this legend really developed from a place of like, we're not going to do that. And then the real fact is that in times of desperation, it's not unheard of for people to cannibalize each other. So like, maybe let's not do that either.
Yeah.
As for how you hypothetically kill a Wendigo, should you ever happen across one?
Gun.
Well, that depends on the version of the story we're working with here.
Oh, yeah, if it's a spirit or if it's an actual creature.
Yeah. Some say a weapon, such as a bullet, particularly something made with silver, could do the job.
Oh, God, silver.
But others insist that you actually have to cut out a Wendigo's heart, which is made of ice, and then you need to melt that icy heart over an open fire.
We have to melt his heart.
You do, a la Frozen. Gosh, that would have been a much darker version of Frozen, wouldn't it have been?
Right.
But in many versions, it's said that only a spiritual leader or a shaman has the skills and the knowledge to perform the ceremony capable of killing a Wendigo. Of course. But yes, so some say you need a shaman, some say you need to melt the fire. In a lot of pop culture adaptations, fire is simply enough.
Oh yeah, they're ice creatures, so.
There is Season 1, Episode 2, for all my supernatural ladies out there. I'm a big fan. They do go up against a Wendigo, and fire is how they defeat it. In that particular series, Wendigos store people in caves so that they can eat them later. So they'll, collect campers. Anyways, it's a decent episode. Back on track here. Historical accounts of Wendigo beliefs date back to at least the 17th century when missionaries recorded what they observed among the indigenous people in what is now Quebec. Later, fur traders, like those from Hudson's Bay Company, also wrote about Wendigo-related encounters. However, their tales and stories often just basically dismissed indigenous beliefs or misinterpreted them through, their lenses. And a lot of the times just essentially would say, oh, these people are crazy.
Of course.
Things along those lines.
Well, like, when people don't understand other people's beliefs, they just like, oh, yeah, this is mumbo jumbo.
Right. But there are a couple notable events through history where people did commit murders or cannibalism and then claimed to have been possessed. Things along those lines.
Of course. How else are you going to get out of prison?
Well, I don't know that it was prison so much back then. I think it was more, just...
hanging.
Yeah, societal justice is kind of what happened there.
Yeah, the mob.
But at any rate, that is the legend of Wendigos. They are very popular in pop culture. As I just mentioned, I watched an episode of Supernatural that featured them.
I see them all the time in video games.
Yeah, all the time in video games. I think that movie based on the video game that just came out actually has Wendigos in it. Oh, gosh. A New Dawn, A New Day.
Oh, you're talking about Last of Us?
No. Oh. Those are zombies. No, it's that movie where they have to survive the night. And they get killed every single night and start over. It just came. Gosh, what's it called? Yeah, it's based on a video game, but the video game community was really mad about it because they said that it deviated heavily. And it has the same name. I'm terrible at names. Until Dawn. So it just came out in 2025. Until Dawn is a horror film derived from the video game of the same name. In this movie, a group of friends are trapped in a secluded area and faced with mysterious foes. They are chased and killed in gruesome ways.
Oh, it came out in 2015. I've never played this game. That's why I don't know it.
Yeah, there's a time loop where the characters restart the night every night with a new threat.
Oh, that sounds kind of cool.
Yeah.
I might go pick this up on Steam.
Yeah, and the film focuses on a group of teenagers who encounter Wendigos, and this just occurred in 2025, so they are very relevant in pop culture today. At any rate, they are an interesting legend and folklore and would definitely be worth researching more into, and I am very grateful that if they are real, they are on the Great Lakes and in Canada and not here in nice, warm, sunny Arizona.
It gets way too hot here during the summer. I think it's like 114 degrees in Phoenix.
Although I do believe that our particular indigenous legend is skinwalkers, which are their own terrifying thing. But at least we don't have them and Wendigos.
Thanks.
Anyways, if you've liked what you heard, please leave us a good review and follow us on social media. And we will see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.